My journey from atheism to enlightenment, it hasn't been pretty. But I can tell you what I have learned. I've learned that we are limitless, that we are powerful beings, and the truth has been hidden. So if you're ready to step in, take your own power back, then welcome to your fate. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Fate. How's everybody doing out there? On today's show, I have author, psychic medium, Chris Berryman, hailing all the way from my home state of Michigan. Shout out to Michigan. He wrote a book called The N1 Sessions, Seasonal Reflections from the Outer Dimensions of Light. This episode is going to blow your mind. I can't wait to get into it with him. Chris Berryman, welcome to your fate, my friend. How you doing
I'm doing
today?
really well. Thanks for having me, Christy.
Thank you for spending your time with me today. I read your book, sir, and it really, to me, it kind of felt like a love letter to humanity in a lot of ways.
Wow.
You know, kind of like, here's a gift of love, please try and consume and make adjustments accordingly,
I
please.
love that.
But it's true. I was like, oh, this, humanity needs to hear this. It was a nice little mirror to hold up in front of yourself to look at who we are collectively, in my opinion. But we're going to get into all of that. I want to know more about how your own personal spiritual awakening, your journey. This book was a channeled book, from what I understand, that happened during COVID, primarily, from what I understand. And you were channeling a collective that called themselves or referred themselves as the N1.
Yes.
Yes. Am I checking all
You
the
are.
boxes?
Yes. N1 and N1 is actually the leader, and the greater collective we've come to know as the Orion contingent.
I'm obsessed. I love doing these kind of episodes because I feel like this is the future of what humanity needs to know, really. But before we get there, let's focus on you for a few minutes. I want to know your journey. How did you become gifted? And tell us all.
Thank you. Well, so yes, my journey in with things, all things metaphysical or things psychic or transcendent, I guess you'd say. I have a theater and film background. I'm still working those worlds, and I've become more interested in writing over the last few years. But I'd say since like the late 90s, I've been involved in studying spirit communication, working with angels. I studied tarot on my own and with friends for a long time. But it was more of it didn't have anything to do with extraterrestrials or anything like that. And I've also studied healing, energy healing and spiritual healing. But about, I'd say, the middle of 2019, I started getting these interesting sensory impressions. And it started as what you'd call geometry or sacred geometry, just shapes. And when I'd close my eyes, it would just be there, sort of like on that screen, that like black screen that was there. And I also started seeing interesting machinery that I had never laid eyes on before. The first one was sort of a high-tech, multi-level windmill kind of looking thing. And I was like, what is this? And I was actually in a retreat at the time. And I do think the practice of grounding really activates our inner communication system, because I had started to do that more intensely at the time when these visions appeared. I don't know if that was the reason, but that had something to do with it, I think. And then it was 2020 happened, and these these visions, for lack of a better word, started to morph. I started seeing portals and what looked like flying saucers. And then at night, I started seeing, and this scared me a bit at first. I had to talk to a counselor about this. I started seeing eyes, and the eyes then, it would be like for a second, and then I would sort of back off. The counselor that I went to, who I've known for some time, she told me, "Well, don't be afraid. Just relax. Try to stay relaxed and see what is going on. Who or what is there, and just relax, and stick with the process." I then started seeing faces and full beings, entities, whatever you want to say. Some of them were human looking, and some of them were not. When I first saw that a few of them had like a slit pupil, I think I screamed out loud because I was scared. With this whole thing about reptilians, and that there's an evil agenda going on with reptilian beings on the earth and everything. And then, but they were not intrusive, and they just kept being there. So finally, let me. I'm trying to give you the cliff notes here, because there's many things that happened. Um, Eventually, at night, there was a lamp on by the bed, and I had this experience where I felt this being pulled upward, and I knew something was happening, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Let's just relax and go with this," just like my friend counselor Elaine said. And I did. And what happened was I was brought this intense feeling of moving upward. It was a pleasant feeling though at the same time. And I saw um, a a console and a window and a desert landscape. And I also saw hands like on the console. I saw other things as well, and I started hearing music. Uh, it was actually that song, "The Air That I Breathe," that uh, Phil Everly or whatever it's called. But then it was just maybe because that was something that I like, that music, and it was something, and it just had
Mm.
it felt like I was getting five energy healing sessions at the same time. Um, so shortly after that, when the beings kept appearing, I finally just said, what is it that you want? What do you want here?" And then a conversation opened with a being who identified himself as N1 and a greater collective of beings. And the journey in the spaceship was the basis for my first book, which is an illustrated sci-fi offering for ages 10 and up called Flying Saucer Visions. And then the continued deepening conversation is the foundation for my upcoming book, which is called the N1 Sessions, which is nonfiction metaphysical consciousness essays. So that's the basics of it right there.
Okay, so let's get into this whole situation. Prior to you having visions in your head, whether they be eyes or full on manifestations of alien beings, were you psychic? Were you having any kind of other knowings in your life?
Yeah, I had
The
some
clairs
I
or
had some
something?
training. I had to do psychic work, and I was something I practiced consistently, sort of working with my inner guidance and working with my gift of clairaudience. So I had a foundation laid down. Now, what I had to do to hold the frequency, hold the energy of these beings, which is very high, very intense, I had to sort of develop that a little further and develop my own method for holding that. And it's something I'm still evolving. I'm still learning. But it's gotten to a level where I can communicate in for 20 minutes at a time, half an hour at a time, up to that if needed. To that I can let them speak through me or write through me.
So you do speaking
Yeah,
and
yeah.
writing. Oh, N are they is N1 the only interdimensional being that has reached out to you to communicate with you, or are you now communicating with various other
That I'm
beings?
sticking with the guy that I came in with. So I haven't reached out. I haven't tried to, and I do receive like there might I have others. Let me say this: others have appeared to me, but the only ones that I'm really allowing that communication to come through us is this Orion Collective.
How being from Michigan, and I'm from Michigan too, so I kind of get I know the vibe that that you're living in. How well received was this by other people? Because I can't imagine this would be something that you would share with other people. No offense to Michigan, but it's pretty
Traditional.
it's not the most. Yes, traditional is a great
Yeah,
word, it's very traditional there, and you kinda have to have, you know anyways,
yes,
what
I hear what.
what, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying, what was that experience like that you started having these full-on conversations? Who could you tell
Well,
about them that you trusted
here
enough?
here in where I live in Metro Detroit, there I am involved with certain circles of healers and energy workers and creative people. So I had some friends who I could talk to this about. The word when you say that word channeling, a lot of people start to get a
Yeah,
little squirreled out for some reason because I don't know if they
yeah.
associate it with the '80s New Age or Ramtha or something like that. I don't know. And it for me, it's a rather simple process, but uh, I have friends I'm able to talk about. The guy, one of the people who wrote sort of a testimonial for me, who that the first thing you see in the book, David Kuhnlein, who was a novelist. I asked him to read it and write about it. I didn't know if he had any uh, interest in this kind of thing or believe in it, but he had a very positive response and has really he wrote a beautiful testimonial and he's said really nice things about the book. So people you don't know where what people are open to sometimes as well.
Yeah, channeling is something hard for people to A, understand, and B, their internal programming of fear and, our go-to emotion when we don't understand something is
Yeah.
fear. So, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of like, if you're very religious, it's like the devil has invaded your
Yes.
body and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing. I also grew up in Metro Detroit,
Where
though,
did you
my
what neighborhood
friend.
did you grow up in?
I grew up in a small town on the water called New
Oh yes,
Baltimore.
yeah. I'm in the
Like,
east northeast side of Detroit, so I hang out in St. Clair Shores sometimes, and it's not terribly far. Yeah.
yes, New Baltimore, Mount Clemens, Chesterfield Township. Shout out, shout out, shout out. I mean, I go back to Michigan as often as I can. I still have a plethora of people that I've known since I was a child. So I am a Michigan hometown girl, Midwest through and through. So I have a lot of love. I know St. Clair Shores very well. Bar hopped in St. Clair Shores many, many a night. I mean, the drinking stories in Michigan are endless, to be honest with you. Still endless. I still go back there and have like the
It
best
is a
time with
it's
my.
a
Anyways, so I'm glad that you had people there that embraced you and accepted you and allowed you to process what was going on because that's kind of a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, and it's a little people. Some people think it's a little insane that I did this most pretty much by myself too. Which what you were talking about. Some people are there's a fear. I think people get very scared, um, and
Yes.
there's a fear about uh, dark entities and demons and things like that, which I believe in. I think we do need discernment. we do need to be,
Yes.
careful and question the sources, or, once we move into
Yes.
communicating in other dimensions and things we're not, to sources we're not exactly sure about, their origin. But
Yeah.
for this, it's, I've just been able to trust the vibration of the whole thing and the quality of the encounter,
Yeah.
and keeping, I do have I have a whole process that I go through in doing this, and I do have a lot of safeguards, I think, to make sure that I'm not compromised, or anything like that.
I mean, you do have to have discernment. There is malevolent and benevolent species of or entities or whatever out there. But let's talk about the book and how you decided to write a book that was channeled to basically humanity from their dimension through you. And when did this start turning into a book idea or the concept of a book?
Well, I had the idea that, I would do, sessions. I would do these sessions these channeling sessions, in moon cycles when it first started coming through. I wanted to make sure it was a high energy, it was a high occasion when I connected, and that then I also didn't feel, even though it was a pandemic and I had a lot of time on my hands, but I wanted to. I wanted to do it in a cyclical kind of way, step by step, and that was important to me. And it also, I've noticed that when the actual channeling, I feel it comes through quite easily. It feels quite invigorating. When I have to go back in, because usually I speak it into my phone, I record it, and then I
Oh.
transcribe it, and so I have to then, take it and basically put it into English, and because there's a difference between speaking spoken English and in written English. Um, but when I have to do that, it can be it can, like, woo, just living in the material for an extended period of time. For me, it can be, kind of a little bit, tiring, probably because it's a higher, my vibration is what it is, and then there's this higher vibration of the concepts and ideas that are coming through, but then I just have to rest. So that way, when I do it in the either moon cycles or equinoxes or whatever, some sort of elevated day, then I don't get overwhelmed. I can do it in a step by step way too. Um, yeah, so that's kind of how I work.
After I read the book, to me it read like a love letter of sorts to humanity, as far as like it gives you a very broad view of their perspective of our own evolution, of what's happening in humanity now, about what humans need um to work on to expand and grow their own consciousness. It talks about the divisions that are currently in the world here, talks about the wars, it talks about the fact that we're the degradation of our natural resources. It talks about a cabalish type of um power or group that is kind of feeding us fear, manipulating us, getting us to bicker, hate each other, to produce more negativity, to distract us from figuring out how powerful we are. Can you can you give me your own perspective on the transmissions that you received regarding the state of humanity today?
Yes, everything that you just said, yes, it touches on all those things in the N1 sessions. And it certainly does feel that there is a force or forces that are influencing this emotional fire that you just described. So in it, in the N1 sessions, it also talks about that there is because of the players involved, some who are supporting humanity and some who have their own agendas, whether they're on this planet or if they're in other dimensions or other places, that that there's a frequency control to a degree of this. So some of those things you're talking about, there could be different reasons for them, for all of that violence and all of that division and everything. Some of it could be to distract, and some of it could be that some of these entities feed off of that negative emotion, and so that it's almost like food
Yeah.
for them. So that is one of the things that we can wake up to, and then we can decide right now what we want to participate in and what we don't want to participate in.
I mean, I have not been in the spirituality side of things for most of my life. Like, this is all pretty new to me, but I will say, and I was thinking the other day, what really does spiritually awaken or to be awake mean? And I think there's many different levels of us having a spiritual awakening. And as you start maneuvering your way through them and leveling up and gaining more and more information and talking to more and more people, and I've read 20 million books now, through this podcast and everything. I will say they are just recurring threads that keep happening that I keep coming upon. And one of these recurring threads, themes, conspiracies, if you will, is that there is this alien type energy being that is here in a very powerful position that lives off our negative energy, that feeds off our negative energy, which is why you see so much negativity in our world. You see it everywhere. You see it in our politics. You see it in the way we interact with each other. Social
Oh
media is a
God.
cesspool of just feeding us fear and outrage. And we consume it like, it's our last
Yes,
meal
yes.
or
In
something.
one of the channelings
But
that's come through since the book was published, the source describes it as like the Roman social media. It's like the Roman Colosseum with this sport of
yes,
sacrificing people, or that there's some
yes,
that even if like just getting involved, even if you think you have a righteous point of view, that it's perhaps best to just not, to just let that be. But
yeah,
it just seems like it's actually feels like it's ramping up right now with the different technologies coming through and the AI, which is expanding. And then perhaps AI we will eventually find how to use AI in a way that actually enables humanity, as opposed to
yeah, yeah,
limiting it and creating isolation
yeah,
and fear. But I don't know if we're there yet. It's just
yeah.
it's all happening
Yeah.
so fast is the thing.
I think if you had to say one of the good things that, from my perspective, that about what's happening in this time of humanity is that people are really starting to see institutions that we have listened to and relied on for generations start to fall apart. And I think that our system is becoming so it's so obvious that our systems could be working better for humanity, for the greater good, for everybody. And it's so obvious that our systems are set up to where most people just fail. And I think it's a great time when people start losing their faith in governments and schools and medical institutions. Maybe it's a great time for them to start looking to other things for guidance, for truth, for their own internal their own internal guidance to kind of kick in, and they can start releasing the the grip that these institutions have had on humanity for years. In a way, it's kind of great that it's super dystopian and crazy out there, because I think it is leading people to believe that like a lot of which happens out there just doesn't make sense anymore. Like there has to be more to us, to what's going on, to our experience here. And there seems to be a very almost you can it's starting to become obvious at this point that there is something that is constantly filling us with fear, with rage, with keeping us distracted, with keeping us in patterns of thought. So what do you think about that? Like, I
Oh,
don't know,
yes.
that's
Well,
like,
I had a friend.
what do you think?
What you just said triggered so many thoughts in my mind, and I had a friend the other day who was very much a political person. She's very much into the political scenes, very much an activist, and she just said to me, she said, well, here's to 2026, as if 2025 was the worst thing, that's ever happened. And it's there's certainly been a lot of challenges, on the world stage and in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. But I said, 2025 has been a pretty good year for me. It's been good. And she just looked at me as if I was insane or deranged or a narcissist, But it really does feel to me that there are amazing things popping up all over the place, even
Yep.
though there's turmoil.
I mean, I think that one of the things that I've learned is that life is a lot about what you focus on. And if
Yeah.
you're focusing on all of the negative things, like my own personal life, if you were to like just look at my life from an out exterior perspective, like I've got my own trauma going on. I have health issues. My career, I was working in the movie industry. My career is evaporated. It's all the work's moved overseas. I'm living hand to mouth. I'm not sure exactly where to pivot. I have all of these things going on, but I don't know, through everything that I've learned with my own spiritual awakening, I feel content, I feel calm, I feel happy. I know how to navigate my life a lot better through using my own internal navigation system, my inner intuition, and I just feel like my vibration, how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, how I'm saying it is all going to affect my outer reality. And that's kind of how I live my life. So it's really hard to get me off my game. I should be like extremely worried about next month. And I'm not. I'm like, enjoying the holidays or whatever. I don't worry about how I'm going to pay my mortgage next month. I know it's going to be taken care of. And I think if you can get disciplined in that kind of journey in life where you really don't know what's going up and you just live right now. And right now, I'm having an amazing conversation with you about a fascinating, book. And my life's brilliant and I have intellectual conversations. I don't worry about what's going to happen next month. I don't worry about what I said to somebody last year. I live right here now. This is my zone. Super happy in this zone. But I do feel like there is a tsunami of people that are starting to unhook from the fear, from the division. I think the greatest obstacle we have right now is the fact that everyone is so divided. And going back to your book, the N1 Collective talks a lot about why humanity is in the state that it is, um and how we can start disconnecting from the fear, the outrage, and start in the same talking points. Like we only even discuss the topic or the talking points that we're spoon fed. There is no ulterior way to even have a discussion about, let's say, things like war or the economy or government. It's like just spoon fed stuff. Then we just mimic the
Yeah.
same talking points. It's kind of like we're robots in a way, like we ourselves are
Right, and that
programmed.
we're spoon fed that the media covers. They don't like to talk about alternatives.
Yes.
They only like to talk about the problems at hand. It, if that must be fixed by the establishment,
Yes.
that must be fixed by the Congress or whatever.
Yeah.
And that, of course, that's an important part of it. That's the way that the government is structured. But there's definitely, there's definitely a taboo about discussing uh, many topics, not just consciousness, but
Yeah.
environmental breakthroughs and
Yes.
uh, different very positive things that are happening all over the place,
Yes.
and just actually amazing experiments that are happening.
Yes.
So that's a pretty interesting phenomena, I'd say.
I mean, the it sounds to me like the channeling sessions that you were having with this collective really was trying to educate us as to how much we really don't know. I think human species thinks we're the smartest kids on the block, and
Mhm.
we are super unevolved. We are super barbaric, violent, and we don't know what and who we are. And and this awakening to the knowledge of we are part of a bigger galactic family, if you will, with a bigger idea of what life is. Most people, we have been spoon fed this idea that our lives are, you get born, you go to school, you get a career, you work until you die, you pop out kids, and like that's life, when our lives could be so much more rich and so much more varied if we were to take back our own power and start thinking for ourselves again. And most of us walk around in a trance, reacting to our environment, externalizing everything, not being able to have our own unique opinion or thoughts on anything, completely disconnected from our heart center. Like, and this book talks about all of it. Let's talk about
Yes.
how it talks about the origins of the human species. It talks about, a little bit about creator beings and things like that. What did the N1 Collective tell you about the origins of who we are?
Yes, it touches on that early on, briefly, and that we are we share cellular material with beings from the stars. That there are creator beings who seeded many uh, star races in this universe, and that some of those star races then got together and seeded us.
Yes.
And it also discusses that there were some other groups perhaps who came along and maybe messed with us a little bit, maybe rewired us a little bit, or had some activity that they were doing that we're still living out today. So that yes, we are, like you said, that we're not the most evolved species as far as the greater multiverse goes. We're the new kids on the block. We're
Yeah.
the youngins, and we're growing. We're learning. We're moving out of. It feels like we're trying to move out of our adolescence.
Yes.
Is what it feels like to me, and that this time right now in this receiving this book that receiving the N1 sessions that came through, and I look around, I see many other writers and mediums and researchers doing similar work, or work that's sort of aligned with this, that it's just feels that this is the time that it's almost like, okay, the greater forces of the universe are saying, you're ready now, you're ready to hear this,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
ready to take this into consideration. And
Yeah.
so what are you going to do? And that's the big question. What are we going to do? I think it's also exciting that more forums are popping up, like more
Yeah.
podcasts like yours, and more material. And there are more places now where you can express, I feel that I can express my truth without fear.
Yeah.
Um, and that is exciting to me. It feels like they're popping up all over the place. They're appearing. even in places that they weren't before, even
Yeah.
even in Michigan.
I mean, especially with COVID, I think when they shut the world down and
Yeah,
people were put on pause, I think that everyone started looking around and asking questions like, is this what my life is? What am I? Who am I? And even the N1 Collective, you know, gives some tips as to what people can just start doing to maybe take some of their own thoughts and power back. Don't follow the herd, have your own discernment, question authority, all of these things that I think people need to hear every once in a while, that we're so distracted by bullshit, sports,
yeah.
TV, social
Oh
media.
God.
Like, we're constantly overstimulated with everything. We never sit in silence. We never ask any questions of anything beyond, who's playing on the game tonight or whatever. We
Oh
are
my God.
just
Yes.
we're just completely asleep at the wheel, thinking that this
And
is
you said two or three things you just said in there were just so I think they're really hit me, and also it's in the N1 sessions that number one to sit in silence, ask the
yes,
question, who am I, and
yes,
accept the presence that answers, accept that
yes,
this multidimensional presence that we are, and to
yes,
not follow the herd, that
yes,
we can gently question what what we want to be involved in what is really going on in
yeah,
the world. Like,
yeah,
it's, I think that self inquiry is can be very powerful. Just to simply,
mm,
well, I don't know, is that really true that
that's
that that we're on the brink of destruction, that AI is going to take over. I don't know. Like, these are all really important questions, but
it,
we can
they
explore
are.
them and investigate them ourselves. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to get people to open their minds. We're fearful. We are locked in to our ways of thinking. Our environment reinforces our facade of what and who we are on a daily basis. And many, many, many of us are just living hand to mouth in survival mode and don't have the luxury of being even able to ask life's bigger questions, because they are trying to figure out how to pay for that medical bill, or get, or get into school, or whatever. Life just becomes so overwhelming. We're programmed that we have to be working all the time, that we have to be productive all the time. We are spoon fed our talking points. Most of us are completely disempowered to do anything of on a greater scale, with regards to the fact that our planet's completely polluted. We're filled with plastic. We're losing most of the species on this world that are with our fellow beings, that are sentient, that are conscious, that are here having their own journey. We are completely destroying their environment. Like, there's such bigger things in the world that are going on that I don't hear anybody in mainstream media even talking about. You know,
You're so right. You are so right. They're not, and there's is there a I mean, they might touch on it, but it's almost like they don't want to look at solutions or something. They don't want to
yes.
look at possibilities if it makes them or their superiors uncomfortable.
I mean,
Like, there's
yes,
definitely that dynamic of, like, there's things we can't talk about and things we can talk about.
100%. And I also feel like, what is the current? I remember back when I was growing up, I felt like uh we were progressing into a better way of being in the world. Humanity was going to continue to evolve. We weren't going to have war. Like, when I was young, I didn't think we were going to have wars in the future, because we were we were a barbaric, warlike species in the dark ages or whatever, but we're going to evolve into a highly intellectualized society that wouldn't need to use war as a way to win our point of view. I really did believe that. I thought we were going to be involved. Now I feel like the state of the world is basically you're here to make as much money as you can before you die. That's basically like, you know, we covet trillionaires and billionaires like that's the goal. Like we are completely hypnotized by materialism, like having the biggest house and the most shoes in the closet makes us important. We are convinced that having more than we'll ever need is the best way to exist on the planet. Like we're spoon fed all this bullshit that is never going to fill us up, make us happy, or illuminate us to who we are. And I just feel like I don't even understand what the point of humanity is anymore. We're not really evolving. Their idea of progress is just building more wealth for a very small amount of people while everybody else, you know, languishes in survival mode. Like that just seems like what Earth is now. There's no humanity left in humans, if you will.
There, it can certainly seem that way, and there certainly is this obsession with a lot of things you're talking about of the about the Elon Musk and his next move,
Yeah.
and this is going to happen, this is going to get taken over, and then this is going to, yeah, there is an obsession with the new tech wealth too. I
Yeah.
think, you know, like
Yeah.
sort of this the stuff coming out of Silicon Valley and other places. And yeah, and I was born in '72, and I think that was a good year to be born in. And there was this, what you were talking about. I don't know if you might be younger than me, but just that cultural, that mind expansion of the '60s and '70s was
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and it did create hope, or this possibility.
And, you know, I just don't think that humans are aware of how vulnerable they are to what they listen to and what they allow their mind to focus on. It is a level of programming. I work in TV and film, and I never watch anything without thinking to myself, what is this trying to get me to think, feel, say, or do? Because everything that you watch, I don't care if it's a commercial, a movie, a political show, is trying to get you to do something. It has some sort of agenda. And if you're not constantly filtering in real time what you're allowing in your eyeballs, you are letting yourself be programmed. You are. And I think people think, well, me? I can't be programmed. The hell you can't be programmed. You absolutely can. It's a part of our human makeup, you know, and
Brilliant.
and quite frankly, governments are full on aware of how easily programmed we are. That's why advertising is like $1 billion-trillion business now, because we are so easily programmed. You know, like I just want to quote a few of the things from the book. One of the things that it says is, there is a chi, an ether, a universal energy, and these particles are willing to be altered by our desire to commune with them, attune to the divine. Life reveals itself through our intentional awareness. We are co creators of our reality.
Yes.
There is a global consciousness. It's energy, it's frequency, it's vibration, it's what are you resonating with? That is, I think, if we could just get that one thing down in humanity to allow them to understand that they had the power to co-create their world, it would transform the ways in which we think and live our lives overnight. Now, I think they're desperately trying to keep us distracted so we don't understand that about ourselves. But that, I think, is one of the key yummy things that humans need to understand about who we are, is that we can manipulate matter through our thoughts and what we speak and what we think and all of that, right?
Yes. And in the quotes that you
you spoke of there, this was in the N1 sessions. This is these beings describing how they work with creativity, whether it's scientific creativity, spiritual creativity, and that they, from their point of view, it's very easy to do this from the realm that they live in. It's very easy, but we can do it too from where we exist. It's sort of like they're moving up, they're up and they're moving downward, and we're moving up and out. But it's the same. It's the process touches on the same things. This process of co-creation and manifestation, that we also have
Yeah.
this power.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How what are your thoughts about God, organized religion, the stories that we're told about our own creation, the heaven and hell concept? What are your thoughts on that now?
Well, yes, and myself come from a Catholic background, and even though I'm what is known as a fallen Catholic, but so that's always been in my mind somewhere. So I understand the religious experience involved, and but the in the material, they talk about these stories, the storytelling that has come from religion, and how it is set up sort of these this limited future, or these ideas about there's only one possibility moving forward for a soul, and one of those being that what happens after we die, and that like that there, it says something in the N1 sessions about there are, some hope for virgins waiting for them, or there's a heaven beyond pearly gates, or like in your
Oh,
trial
I
is
right.
it touches on atheism as well, or the other point of view that we're
Mhm.
just matter and we don't exist anymore, and that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
reality is much greater than all of this. So just
Yes.
letting those religious stories, we can hold on to the parts of religion that is positive and that works for us, but just gently questioning some of these religious stories that we've been given can open our minds to bigger possibilities.
And I would say even this, if you are in a religion that doesn't allow you to ask questions or question authority, I mean, to me, if that's not a bright light shining saying, stop moving in this direction, I, you know,
These are great points. And perhaps, different eras in the past of human history, religion has maybe brought order and comfort
Mhm.
and ethical guidelines for people. But in that perhaps worked for a period of time for some people in certain situations. But I think that right now it's a excellent time to question and to lay down some of these, if it's not working in my life, any sort of concept, whether it's religious or whether it's philosophical, or if it's an idea of who I am or what I believe in, that this is a great opportunity to lay some of those down
Yeah.
at the riverside, so to speak, in order to see that bigger reality you're talking about.
I want to talk about this before we call it a day. I mean, you talk about, the Greys, the Anunnaki, this other government controlling our planet, Draco, Orion, reptilian conglomerate. Like there's a lot of information in there that's kind of hard to chew on. Forces are working in camouflage to divide us and keep us in a place of constant bickering. The other thing that I want to talk about that might be a little controversial as well is you talk about parasitic entities overcoming our own beings and allowing horrific things to happen through us because we do resonate so much with negativity and negative energy that it opens that door for dark entities to control us. And they talk about a mass shooter. He was a boy, and they talk about him becoming possessed by lower astral forces. Now, We have a lot of mass shootings. We have a big gun problem in America. We have a lot of people that are getting pushed to the brink because of how our society is now. Often do you think that these things are happening because we are kept at such a low vibration that, quite frankly, it's a regular occurrence for these dark entities to take control of us and make us do horrific things? Super controversial, but I think we should discuss it.
Yes. And certainly seems like it's becoming more frequent instead of less frequent with the shootings, doesn't it? Um, and
Yes.
in regards to when children carry out these actions of murder, mass murder, shootings, what came
Yeah.
through in the N1 sessions is that because they're like sponges, that when a child or a young person, and it's true for everyone, but in particular, maybe wrapped up with kids a little bit more, just because they don't even understand their emotions, and they can be
Yeah.
like energetic sponges for absorbing what's around them, and that yes, that there can be an easily be an act once a person. We're talking about Ethan Crumbley in the book, in Michigan, who was a shooter in Oxford, Michigan. And but once a child loses their sense of identity, a sense of connection to both their purpose, their community, that these parasitic forces you're talking about, can easily move in and affect them. And that is explored in the N1 sessions, that in the way that we can protect ourselves from that is through connection, through knowing that that some of the things that come around us are not us, that they
Yeah.
may have a source that has motives that have nothing to do with our own goodwill.
Yeah.
And so that
I
these and
mean,
then these incidents are wrapped up. It seems to be that they fuel each other. That one is, perhaps one of these people gets inspiration from the other incident, or the sources around them get inspiration from
yeah.
one of the shootings, and they ramp out of control. So it is a vicious cycle, but I do believe that there is an interdimensional connection to these events.
I do too. The more I talk to people that do hypnotherapy, that do past life regressions, that talk about spiritual attachments, and not only is human bound souls that have passed over, that have not left our plane, not only are they a potential hazard when it comes to having a spiritual attachment, but also other dimensional, lower dimensional astral forces are also a problem when it comes to spiritual attachments. And they can not only cause illness, they can cause us to have bad thoughts, they can cause us to act out of how we would otherwise act, and basically, unbeknownst to us, carry out horrific tragedies because we are consumed, if you will, by maybe a voice in our head that's telling us to do this that we don't recognize. Like, I just think it would be super beneficial to understand who we are as a species and how life works, because if you don't address like a that, you truly don't understand the dimension in which we are all swimming in together, that there are other forces that can overtake us, that we're
Yes, and I think
vulnerable
that
in that
also
way.
that it also happens quite frequently in domestic situations, in relationships, when this emotionalism and this
Yes.
negativity, negative emotion gets ramped up to such a level, and that there's not even any. It just becomes about fueling that, and
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
there's a psychosexual element to it as well. And so the
Yeah.
great thing about all of this, I feel, is that we can be aware, and we can be aware
Yeah.
when we're not in our integrity, when it's not us that's operating. It's not
Yes.
our soul parts
Yeah.
that's in charge.
Yeah.
So this is a great
Yeah.
invitation, I'd say, to be aware. And there's awareness, there's techniques we can use to stay grounded in our
Yeah.
true nature, our true presence. So this is something to
Yeah.
just be aware of.
I mean, there's so much in this book, everything from um trying to inform us uh how to get out of being so programmed, why we're programmed, what causes us to be so detached from ourselves, whether it be um constant overstimulation, even electromagnetic infection from devices, all the 5G, all the electromagnetic equipment we're surrounded with all the time affects our energy, affects how we feel. Um, Dependence on drugs, sugar, our fear and panic triggers being pressed every single day. There's tons of stimulation allowing us to be so disconnected from our true selves. It talks about the over souls, if you will, of this world, and that there is a other alien beings that are here, that have been here for a long time, that kind of dictate the way in which this world moves and influences us in a negative way and feeds off negative energy. And it really tries in the most loving way to instruct us on how to get out of these patterns of behavior, illuminate us as to why we're in this situation, um, and give us hope that there are other benevolent species out there that are trying to get us to awaken to who we are so we can step into our better selves, understanding the true nature of reality, becoming aware of the power that lies within us. We don't need any other power that does not lie within our own being. And I felt it was kind of a love letter to humanity. Like, hey guys, wake up. We're here. We're watching you. We want you to step in and be a part of the galactic family that exists on the many dimensions in which there are. And I guess my final question to you is, it's really hard for somebody who has not been dancing in this direction for a long time to even listen to anything I just said. What do you say to the skeptics that would say we're crazy, we're out of our minds, we've lost it? Um, how do we awaken people to even start getting them curious about the true nature of reality? Like, let's just, what do we say? What do we do?
Sure. Yes, that's a great question. And I would say that first of all, if you have any interest, even in iota of interest in this subject matter, feel free to give this a shot, reading this book
Yeah.
or any other book, that is on similar topics. And that don't worry about the the source, the channeled nature of it. You can believe whatever you want about the source, but let that rest a little bit. And if you have an interest in it, give it a whirl. And what's going to happen?
Yeah.
What's going to happen. I also think that the N1 sessions, it's suited, even if someone hasn't explored these topics in depth, that even if you just have an interest in these things, that it is really more for the general reader. It's not written on a level of someone who needs to read a bunch of other books first in order to digest it. I think that it's in small. The essays are in short chapters, and that you can be taken in slowly in doses. So I think that it is accessible for anyone who wants to give it a chance.
I agree. I second that. I read the book and it was it was an easy read. And what I think people will come to find is that your internal knowing, there was just so much in there that like rang the truth bell. Like, oh yes, of course. Oh yes, you can plainly see this. Oh yes, this makes sense. And I think more and more people are coming to find that the nature in which we see the culture, the state of humanity, what happens in this plane now is just completely and totally so out of whack. It's so dystopian. It's like you couldn't write this movie. It's so crazy out there now with everything that's
Agree.
happening.
I agree that
You really
reality is
couldn't,
crazier than fiction. Yes.
reality is crazier than fiction. So if you can like come to this book with an open mind, you will find that your inner gut, your inner intuition will pull you in the direction of like, oh, this actually makes a lot more sense than what's happening in today's society on this plane as we know it. Like it just made a lot more sense to me, if you know what I mean.
Well, thank you for saying that, Christy. And I do think, that the book certainly opens us up to a lot of things. The material certainly opened me up to seeing things
Yes.
differently, and it's still the practicing. There are 10 exercises in the appendix as well, where you can take the material and put it into practical use, sort of body mind exercises. I'm still working to incorporate this into my life even more, but it has certainly altered the way that I see things and the way that I live.
I mean, my plan is I'm going to print up those exercises because I lack discipline. So if it's not in front of my face, I won't do it.
Right.
But I think everybody, even if they were to just do the exercises and the books, who knows? Like the next time somebody shuts their eyes and they're seeing geometric shapes, sacred geometry, or they're seeing eyes, or they're seeing flashes of light or something, it is your indication that there is much more going on within you and that you should explore that it's nothing to fear, that it's
It's
a
nothing to
natural
fear.
part.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Indeed.
It's a natural part of who we are. And we are just now, I think, on the brink of awakening ourselves to learn more about who we really are. And the book really is a guide to try and figure out, to make us understand who we really are as a species. And we have not been taught our true history or our true capacities. I think as we move into this new year, I think more and more people are coming out and talking about these things as normal and a part of who we are. And I look forward to the day where people are opening their minds and letting go of their masquerade. Oh, that's another thing in the book. They talk about humans, the face, the masquerade that we have to go through to fit in society, and how we're forced to kind of be
To fall
not
into
our
line.
true authentic
You'd say
selves.
follow the herd
To
or fall into line. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's so much good stuff in there. It's great. I really, really hope people pick up the book and read it, because it can just be the book that puts you on your path of your own discovery and starts leading you to like take your own power back and your own thoughts and your own opinions. So well done, Chris Berryman. Well
Thank
done.
you so much, and thank you for having me. And I'll toast to 2026 as being the year of where it all falls into line.
It'll be the great year of awakening. Let's hope, shall we?
Yes. Falls into line in a good way, to awaken. Yes.
Yes. Well, gang, this episode has been one for the books. I really could talk to you about so many things. It's just chocked full of goodies in there that will give you a great idea of what's coming up for humanity and who we are. And I highly suggest everybody go and pick up the N1 sessions. I will put it in the show notes, and pick it up, gang. Chris, my fellow Michigander, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. And I look forward, if you have another channeled book in there somewhere, let's put you back on the show and we will discuss.
Sounds great. I'd love to come back.
I love that too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week on Fate, From Atheism to Enlightenment. Thank you, Chris Berryman. Pick up his book, gang. And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate, From Atheism to Enlightenment. The N1 sessions, gang. I really loved this book. I'm further along on my journey than maybe some of you all out there, so I'm pretty open-minded at this point. I have lost my ego and my thought that I know everything and that there's nothing that anyone else can teach me out there. I've kind of lost that. Now I feel like I'm just like a truth seeker in general. Like, I will listen and I will use my own discernment. But the N1 sessions was very much like a love letter to humanity. Like, this is where you're at. This is why you guys can't get out of your own way. This is why you're trapped in your own loops of saying, mimicking the same talking points and being unable to feel like you have any control over your own lives, feeling lost. And it reinforced a lot of the things that I was already heard from other people, as far as like, it doesn't make sense to me, a lot of what's happening in our current world. Like, it feels, I work in film and TV. You couldn't write the story that is going on now, I feel, with um the state of the world, especially in America. Like, it just doesn't seem like what is happening makes sense at all. Sanity has just like left the building. People are more bizarre, lost, looking for something else more than ever, I feel like. And I also think that there seems to be a strong effort to get us to hate each other, to get us to not see the humanity in each other. And I feel like that is completely on purpose, not only for government, but also for um, blocking our growth. I think if we started to understand the concept of oneness, that consciousness is everything, that we are all connected energetically, that we are fractals of the divine here, uh, living a separate life, but we are in essence the same. You are me, I am you. Like, it is just much more complex than you would think. And these stories that we've been told, everything from the origins of our species to the stories in the Bible. And I'm not saying every story in the Bible is false, or that the Bible or the Quran or name your biblical scripture is 100% lies. I don't. I think there's truths, and I think it was manipulated by man and maybe other beings to keep us locked in fear of going to hell. Um, you can't question religion. You can't question God. God's an all-knowing being, man, that's going to whatever take you down if you think outside of his parameters. I don't know. It's just it's a highly evolved mind fuck, if you will, for people that keep them imprisoned in their own belief system, in a way, the dogma of it all. But I do think we're coming into a time when people are starting to look around and starting to understand that maybe the institutions that they have relied upon for generations were not at heart the best for humanity, for the greater good. And it's time for us to start taking our power back and start doing the work to understand what we are. And I'm kind of excited. I will say this. I was thinking the other day about what is a spiritual awakening. I'm in my spiritual awakening, and I guess it never ends. But there's just different layers to awakening. The bottom base layer is I think healing. There's so much trauma that we get from being a child, from enduring life on this earth, for not processing our emotions, for just, life is hard on this plane. It is. But I think if you heal your inner child, if you heal the trauma that you've endured and you start understanding um, the true nature, that's a level. And I think the other level, when you start getting on your path, is understanding that we're not alone, that there are other beings out there that we may not be able to see them. But if you do start tuning in, start doing spiritual practices, grounding, meditation, focusing on a candle and letting your mind go into a trance, whatever those things are that allow us to get into a state of being, to be a receiver of other things that are not within our, spectrum that we have currently within our nervous system. You start playing with the universal energy that's around all of us. You start understanding it's a lot different than you think. The other thing that I've stopped doing is paying that much attention to politics or news or anything like that, because it's not telling you full truths, it's not giving you full perspectives, and it's not allowing you to form your own opinions. And once you shut off that valve of information coming at you, whether it be through the phone or through your TV, and you start actually sitting more with your own thoughts, you start being able to command opinions that may or may not be of mainstream acceptance, but you do have an internal guide and an internal discernment to figure these things out. And when I read the N1 sessions, I mean, you can just tell it's a voice that's speaking through Chris that understands a lot more about what we're going through and who we are and how we get to the other side than any normal human would be able to convey. You can just hear it in the words. And a lot of it rang true. And we do need to stop being so divided, stop othering people, stop being so afraid to think outside of the herd, this group thought, this herd mentality that we have, where you only get two ways of thinking, and if they're not in one of those camps, you are ostracized or not accepted or laughed at or any of those things. So I don't know, I loved his whole story. And there wasn't anything inside me that was saying Chris was doing this for attention, for money, or anything else. He genuinely seemed like a guy that was trying to put information out to help uplift, enlighten, and evolve the human species. Because we really could use a great leap in our evolution. We're petty, we're backwards, we're barbaric, we're violent, we don't think, we allow ourselves to be taken up by other people's thoughts, their energy, and swept away, and start saying and behaving in ways we never would, because we are just not in charge anymore of our own being. If they've been hijacked by whatever we've been watching on a daily basis. Critical thinking skills are gone. Thoughts beyond what are accepted are gone. Even the words that you say can be highly criticized and get you in trouble these days. It's a really bizarre time to be alive. Exciting time to be alive if you look at it from that perspective. Like, I think these are all growing pains. I think humans are evolving. I think you're going to have a tsunami of people coming out and talking about their own experiences like Chris does. Now, I do this all the time now. So for me, speaking to a channeler or speaking to somebody that has regular interactions with a being that is not of this plane doesn't seem so crazy to me anymore. It just doesn't. But I know that it is far from accepted in mainstream life. And I couldn't have these conversations, let's say at work, should I say. Like, you got to warm up to the channelers, to the interdimensional nature of who we are. But that's why you're here. So I can dip your toe in that arena in a way that is not scary, that's not oppressive, that is not going to turn you off. I'm hoping that I'm presenting information in a pretty open-minded, take it for what you will, take what resonates, leave the rest. Do your own journey, your own research, your own figuring out who you are, who you're supposed to be here, what you're supposed to learn. All these things are important, and they all should be stuff that we should be concerned with, not the daily bullshit that we are distracted by that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I don't know. I love to know your thoughts on this episode. It was always interesting for me to have these intellectual conversations that I can't seem to get anywhere else except on this show. So good for you for keeping with me and expanding and opening your mind to new information that could virtually open your world to being the co-creator, spiritual, awakened soul that I know is in you. It's in me. It's in everyone. So keep doing the work. I really hope I'm going to bring you some alternative ways, some information, some great themes that will spur you on to start awakening your own journey. All right, well, that was an interesting show. Pick up his book. We will see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. Do me a favor, share, like, subscribe, tell a friend, do something to promote this show, to keep this show going. I am trying to raise the consciousness of this planet, and I need your help to do it. So support the show, gang. Buy my book. My book is in the show notes. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for journeying with me. This is an interesting episode. Maybe I'll have Chris back on to do a part 2. There was so much to talk about. Welcome to your fate, everyone. I'll see you next week. Journey well.